Today, I'd like to address something that's near and dear to everyone's heart, and that is food security. One of my biggest concerns right now, as I've become educated on the things that concern Americans, is the fact that all around the world right now, we're facing food shortages. A lot of this is created by our own actions. We're allowing Chinese nationals and billionaires to buy up millions of acres of farmland. This is concerning for many reasons. We thought that the pandemic was a reason for government to overreach. If we thought that that was going to be a crisis, imagine what it would be like if we ran out of food, if we have food shortages. When you realize that we had people panicking over toilet paper, imagine what they'll do when they panic when our cupboards are bare. This could be a worldwide reason for war. And it's also another reason for government to increase their control. There is always a reason for people to turn to the government to solve the problems that the government created. And that is my main concern today, to be something proactive rather than reactive. We see it coming. We can see that any foreign national country could come up with a virus to contaminate our livestock or even our crops. And yet we're doing nothing to proactively make sure that Chinese nationals can't buy farmland in America, that billionaires can't buy millions of acres of farmland and artificially increase prices during a food shortage.
Welcome back to Seedtime and Harvest. Today we're out in the garden. As you know, we've been helping a lot of people with getting their garden started in an attempt to create a food forest here in this garden. Actually, this bed I overdid it on the mung beans, but they're doing well. As you can see, we have the mung beans are starting to shoot, sending out bean pods, which is amazing. But it's a tiny bed, and I have 4 tomatoes, a squash, and a lot of mung beans in here. So I'm gonna go through and take out the ones that are not doing so well, and the ones that actually have beans on them, we're gonna let them stay. The tomatoes, on the other hand, they're doing amazing. The colors are beautiful on the plants, a deep green, and we are actually having tomatoes shooting already. The key to having a lot of tomatoes on your vine, once your vine starts to send out blossom, you're going to tap them just to allow the pollen to fall down, okay, so that they can be pollinated. Tomatoes are wind pollinated, so you can just tap them, tap the flower lightly, gently, to allow the pollen to fall through, and you get good tomatoes. And what I'm going to do with these plants, I have to go through and pick off the lower leaves that are touching the ground, and then we're going to put it on a trellis. We're going to support it. It's just better to have less leaves, especially when your fruits are starting to come out. And the tomato will send out a lot of side shoots. See, this is a side shoot that's coming off from the main shoot. You can even break these off and plant them deep. And I'm pretty sure I spoke about it before, where the hairs will form new roots. So I may do that with this plants because it has a lot of side shoots, and this bed is already crowded. But look at the squash. Squash has nice flowers. We already have a yellow squash forming on here. These are the squash flower, and what you can do is I'll just take the pollen from the flower and pollinate the actual squash flower. If I don't see a lot of bees in the garden, I'll come out and do that. And
is one flower a male and one a female?
Yes.
How can you tell?
Yes, you can tell the difference. This one has the pollen sap, and that one is the fruit. Okay, so that one needs to get the pollen. The key with growing big onions is to always prune. Whenever you see any portions of the onion start to die, you have to pick them off so that the plants can continue to grow. Okay, once the onion starts to die, then that's the amount of energy is going to start to go to the root. But if you don't have a lot of leaves, then you're not going to have big onions. All right, so whenever you see the tips starting to brown, you just pop those off and make sure your onion bed is weeded. No, not too much weed is in the garden because it doesn't really like competition. I know we have a little bit of a crowding going on here, but the mung beans again are everywhere. Once these are fit, we're going to take them out to give the onion space. And we also have cucumbers in this bed and some overgrown radish. These radishes are overgrown, so these are going to have to be cooked. We had radish over here and cucumbers and their garlic at the end of this bed. In this bed also we have a lot of squash. The squash have to be checked regularly for mold, but praise God, we're not seeing any mold this year. As I said, this is our 7th year gardening in this location, and it's amazing how much everything is just looking so beautifully. As you can see, we have a good amount of squash and some strawberry plants that are growing in this bed. We've been harvesting strawberries from this plant, and we have 3 squash plants that's interplanted with the onions and garlic to prevent squash vine borers. So it looks like it's doing an amazing job. Praise God. Initially, I thought the asparagus had died, but as you can see, this is asparagus. This is what it looks like. Not seeing any new shoots as yet, but the new shoots are what you would harvest. And we've even harvested the tip from the leaves, from the stem, and you are able to eat this part as well. When it comes out of the ground, this is what it would look like before you see the actual plant starts to bunch, and that's what you would harvest. So it's doing amazing. Next, we have our tree collards. We have 4 collard plants growing over here. There were more. You can see some babies are still coming back, but we really don't need a lot of collards because it's almost half my height, and you can see how broad the leaves are. Let me show you. So for a family of 6, you don't need a lot of plants because these just grow so beautifully. And we don't have a lot of aphids this year, praise God. And it's just looking amazing. The only thing with this bed, it's a small bed, and we have large plants growing in this bed. So we had a little bit of a magnesium deficiency, so I had to remove the lower leaves because the tip were starting to brown. So I will just add some compost to this bed and add some rock phosphate to it so that the roots will be able to develop strong and be able to absorb the nutrients from the soil. But other than that, they're looking amazing, don't you think? Nice colors. As I was watering the bed, I noticed that the potatoes were being exposed, so I had to get some soil and throw it on top. The potatoes are coming up really nicely, but they're too close to the surface. So what we'll do is get some dirt and cover them up. See, they're too close. We're gonna get some dirt and mound the potatoes because if they get exposed to the sunlight, they will get green, and green potatoes can be toxic. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get some dirt. I have dirt in a wheelbarrow and mound up around the roots of the potatoes so that the actual shoots, tubers, don't get exposed to the sunlight. These are not ready to be harvested yet, even though I can go through and pick out some big ones. I can feel some big ones that I can harvest. But what I'll do is I'll wait until the entire plant dies down, and then I will harvest. A good companion to potatoes are leeks. And these leeks have been in this garden bed for about 2 years. About 2 years these plants are growing. I decided not to harvest all of them because we had a lot of leeks in here. So we've been harvesting little by little, but I wanted to leave some in so that I can get seeds. And these are actually going to seed this year. This is the 2nd year. So they're actually going to go to seed, which I'm thankful for, so that I can have seeds to start again. The good thing about leek is that you can keep them in the ground over winter and harvest as needed. So we always have a lot of leeks growing, not only in this bed, but also the bed behind me. which I'll show you next.